I keep a lot of things in my messy office since I never seem to throw anything away. But one of the things I've got is a collection of iPad keyboard cases that I've had for my iPad Pro over the years. If you're interested in getting a keyboard case for your iPad, the first decision you're going to have to make is what design do you want? These are 3 different designs. Let's dive into the pros and cons of iPad keyboard case designs. In this video, I'm not going to talk about specific brands of keyboards except, of course, for Apple's. What I am going to explore are the 4 basic designs for iPad keyboards that are available. There are pros and cons to each design, and those design choices matter in your choice of a case. If you're in the market for an iPad keyboard, any iPad keyboard, hopefully this video will help you make a decision about what design is best for you. The first design is the Apple Magic Keyboard, and it's the only one I don't own, so you'll just have to put up with pictures. However, my brother owns one, and I have used his. For this design, the iPad floats above the keyboard. It's attached with magnets. You'll note there's no kickstand in the back. The original Apple ones had a plastic base under the keyboard, but the updated 2024 versions for the M4 Pro has an aluminum base. Apple's Magic Keyboard is not the only keyboard with this basic design. Here are just 2 examples that you can get from Amazon that have the same magnetic floating design. They look equally as cool as Apple's. A reminder that all the pricing on my channel is in Canadian dollars. The pros of this general design are, it's very lightweight. It's super easy to pop your iPad on and off. The iPad attaches magnetically so it doesn't always have to live with the keyboard. They sure look sleek. Apple's version has a power pass-through port that lets you plug in a USB-C cable to the keyboard itself, charging the iPad, while you could plug something else like an SSD or a dock into the iPad itself. The cons of the Magic Keyboard design, however, can be problematic. You can basically only use it in landscape mode. Want to do something in portrait, you have to pull it off the case and then lay it flat next to the keyboard. You can't prop it up against the backing because the iPad actually physically sits on and covers the key. So I wish I could show you this, but I don't have one. The sides of the iPad are not protected while it's in the case. Dropping an iPad in its Magic Keyboard is probably not a good idea. They're not great for using on your lap. Even the new aluminum base one is fairly stable, but it's not great on your lap. Your Apple Pencil attaches magnetically on the top, but nothing keeps it there. So it's easily knocked off, and if you want to put it, say, in a briefcase or something like that, it's just going to fall off. Apple's version, in case you aren't aware, is frighteningly expensive. It's a third of the cost of the iPad itself. That whole power pass-through things of Apple's is a cool idea, but you can get a dongle that'll support power in. If you're going to have something that dangling off the side of the iPad, I'm not sure that it matters to have the pass-through. If Apple's Magic Keyboard is the most expensive option, then this design is the most common, and it's also the least expensive option. This design features 2 parts: a case you put your iPad in, and a separate, not attached keyboard that connects via Bluetooth. The keyboard sticks onto the case using magnets. To use this case, you unfold it, you pull the keyboard out, you fold it into a stand, and you move the keyboard into place. A slight variation of this design are ones with kickstands, basically the same thing, but instead of folding the thing like origami, an arm comes out to stop the iPad from tipping over. I'm going to call this general design the inexpensive 2-part system. The pros of this design are they're inexpensive. There are dozens of companies making them, and they are easily had for less than $50. The cases do a great job of protecting your iPad if you drop it. If you don't need the keyboard itself, you can take it out, and you've got a pretty nice case to carry just the iPad around. Basically, all of these have a slot to securely store your pencil. Most enable magnetic charging of the pencil for the iPads that can do that. And finally, they're usually fairly lightweight. This one weighs just 600 grams. But there are a lot of downsides to this design. This case is virtually impossible to use in portrait mode. First, you have to take the keyboard out. There's no way to fold the case to support the iPad vertically, so the keyboard's on its side and the iPad lays flat. The keyboards themselves vary widely in quality from manufacturer to manufacturer. They're just Bluetooth, and I've seen some that are really cheaply made. This one, for instance, bends and twists. This design is not great on a lap. They're often too long for a lap, and the viewing angle can't be set right. Depending on the material the case is made of, they can slide off your lap, though this particular case is nice. All of this is true for kickstand styles. Kickstand styles are terrible on a lap. Generally, with this design, the viewing angle is adjustable on your lap or on a desk. And finally, remember, cheap case, cheap material. Almost always, the plastic these are made of wears out pretty easily and pretty quickly. This next design is very laptop-like and reasonably popular. The iPad clips into one side. That side is attached to the keyboard on a unique hinge. That hinge can spin 360 degrees and supports the iPad at almost any angle. I've been personally using this type of case for the last year. I'm going to call this the fake laptop design. Great things about a fake laptop design are it's really laptop-like. The iPad's well protected. It's solid enough to use on your lap, though it can be a bit slippy depending on the material it's made out of. Modern ones have pencil holders to support magnetic charging. This particular iPad doesn't support that charging, so it just has a pencil slot on the side, which works okay. Spin the iPad around 180 degrees, and it's a perfect thing for sitting on your lap to read a book. Want it in portrait mode? Spin it 180 degrees and fold it flat. But spin it 180 degrees, fold it flat, and the keyboard's completely inaccessible. The other two keyboards I've talked about may be ergonomically bad in portrait, but at least you can access the keyboard. Need to type in portrait mode? You're stuck with the on-screen keyboard. These cases are heavy. There's a lot of plastic here. This case weighs almost as much as the iPad in it. Once the iPad's in this case, the whole case, including the keyboard, goes everywhere. The iPad part does not separate from the keyboard. You can see this case clearly shows wear from me using it in the field for a year. This hinge is cool and all, but when you tap the screen, the iPad bounces. I've lost track of the number of times I've mistapped because of that. And another problem with it is if you lean it too far back and tap the screen, it falls over. You have to hold the keyboard to stop it from falling over almost all the time. These fake laptop design cases are generally a bit more expensive than the previously mentioned inexpensive two-part cases, but they're not by much, and price really shouldn't be a deciding factor between the two. Finally, there's my personal favorite style of case. It's not as common as the ones mentioned previously, but there are still a few manufacturers of it. This design looks a bit like the previous design, but it's actually in two parts. Instead of a funky cool hinge, the iPad part attaches to the keyboard magnet, usually with strong magnets. I'm going to call this the two-part laptop design. Price for these is on a par with the fake laptop design case I just talked about. This design is good because, again, it's very laptop-like. With a simple tug, you can pull the iPad portion off. In some ways, it's like the Apple Magic Keyboard design, but the iPad is now in a case, though one without a cover, mind you. Turn it around when it's off, reattach it, and it can sit on your lap, and so you can read a book. Want to use it in portrait mode? Two options. Pull it off, and wow, it's in portrait mode. Or pull it off, flip it around, fold it down, and then, again, it's in portrait mode. And it's not bad to use on a lap. The downsides of this design are fewer, and they're also similar to the fake laptop case, except for one. Just like that hinged case, lean it too far back, tap the screen, it falls over. Just like the hinge case, it's a little on the heavier side. It's not as bad as the hinge one. Just like the hinge case, you can see the wear and tear. I've put on this particular one. This particular case died because several of the keys stopped working. But with this design, the typing experience in portrait is on par or better than with any other case. You can make it best by popping the iPad off, laying it down behind the keyboard, and type away. I haven't talked about keyboard backlighting. Many cases have that. If you want to just search around in your preferred design, and I'm sure you can find it. I also didn't talk about trackpads. None of my keyboards have ever had trackpads, but that was a personal preference. You can get trackpads in any of these four designs. So which keyboard design is right for you? To pick, ask yourself these questions. First and foremost, do you need to use it in portrait mode frequently? And remember, some apps only support portrait mode. If the answer is yes, go for the last one I talked about, the two-part laptop design. Offers two different portrait experiences, allows you to use the keyboard reasonably while doing so in one of them. Second question, are you often going to use your device on your lap and not on a desk or a table? If the answer is yes, you want either the fake laptop design or the two-part laptop design. Both are very functional on a lap. The other two just aren't. Third, do you want to leave your keyboard behind sometimes and just use your iPad as an iPad? If the answer is yes, avoid the fake laptop design because it doesn't come apart. Then ask yourself, Do you want your expensive iPad protected when you leave your keyboard behind? If the answer is yes, the inexpensive two-part system is probably best. The two-part laptop design's not bad. They both keep the iPad in a case at all times. The inexpensive two-part system does it better. Do you want the best typing experience possible? Apple Magic Keyboard, period. It's a treat to type on. It's possible you could luck out with a good keyboard of any of the other designs. Logitech's are nice, but the short answer is they're none are as good as the Magic Keyboard typing experience. Do you want a keyboard case but don't want to pay an arm and a leg for it? There are literally thousands of options out there other than Apple's very expensive Magic Keyboard. Look at the pros and cons of each design, pick a design that makes sense for you. Even a fake Magic Keyboard works okay and can save you a ton of money. But I'm curious as to what design elements matter to you when you're looking for a keyboard case for your iPad. Leave them in the comments below. Like and share the video if you found it useful, and I'll be back soon to talk about more stuff that's buried in my incredibly messy office. Thanks for watching.